Me from South Africa, and hello for the ones joining us from the other parts of the world. Thank you for registering to Latitude's EU residency webinar, following the successful one we've held back in July for South Africa and Africans in general, whereby we are now assisting a growing number of families wanting to move or just to have access to the EU, particularly to Malta, through its residency program, which is also known as the Malta Residency and Visa Program, which predominantly grants an indefinite permit, thus the right to reside permanently in Malta, and of course with access to Schengen without the need to renew a permit, therefore an indefinite permit. My name is Ryan Darmanin. I'm the Managing Director for Latitude based out of Malta. And I can see we have a strong number of participants again with us today, which is very, very encouraging. I think it goes to show that there clearly is a demand, especially out of South Africa, but also other countries, for the solutions that we provide. Let me tell you just a little bit about Latitude and Rift Trust before we then head into learning more about Malta, what Malta has to offer, and what this program is all about. So this is what we do. We help many clients and families seeking peace of mind, the freedom of access, mobility, security, access, especially nowadays, access to a better health system, the opportunity to relocate, or simply a plan B just in case. It's the 21st century insurance policy, if you may. We're unlike an insurance, you hope you do not have to use this insurance policy. Once you have it, you'll be glad to use it. So it's not really there only just in case. But whether it is moving to Malta or simply attaining residency to have the freedom of access to European Schengen countries, with the peace of mind knowing that you have the right to settle into a European country such as Malta whenever you choose to, or whenever the family need arises. Aside of that, what we also do, we're quite strong on the government advisory side of things. Our key executives engage with governments that want to design and promote similar programs. We were heavily involved, our key executives, in the programs for Malta. Very proud to have, one of the actually few international agents that hold licenses, multiple licenses for the programs that we offer, and hence why this has enabled us to, one, focus predominantly on residency and citizenship by investment, but also gave us the opportunity and the privilege, I should say, in assisting well over 1,000 families over the time. Moving on to Malta, and what I intend to do over this webinar today is I'll be highlighting key facts about Malta. Then I'll take you through the main requirements of the program. As I said, a very popular program that's growing in demand, especially out of South Africa and Africa at large. And I'll share with you, what it takes to qualify, how to initiate an application, the process, the timeline, and how we literally handhold you throughout the process. We've done this for the past 7 years, 5 of which are predominantly on the MRVP, on the Malta Residency Program. So it's what we do day in, day out. We specialize in residency and citizenship by investment, with members of my team previously also working for the government side of things, or handling the application. Therefore, it's safe to say you're in very good hands. Of course, if participants that we have with us today are also in need or considering keen on, let's say, setting up a company in Malta, looking for tax advice, real estate, anything, we will of course help by introducing you to our local partners who we work with. But suffice it to say that our core focus is getting you and your family to the finish line as quick and as smooth as possible. And clearly there's opportunities there that I'll be highlighting today, especially on the Malta permanent residency program, which provides such opportunities as well. But let me just take a couple of minutes just to tell you what Malta has to offer and what's Malta all about before we even get into the benefits and the unique selling points of the program. So rich in history, Malta spanning history that spans over 7,000 years. We even have some of the world's oldest structures. I say we, as I'm a Maltese national, together with my team members that are based in Malta. British presence has been in Malta for over 200 years. Therefore, English is also an official language alongside Maltese here in Malta. And this makes doing business very easy, as all the legal aspects and all the legal aspects are conducted in English, and all the legal documentation are also available and provided in English rather than in Maltese. So Malta being a very small island, I mean, spanning only 316 square kilometers, but we say what it lacks in size, it makes up for it in the impressive economic performances and the quality of life indicators. Our population is just under 500,000. However, Malta attracts well over 2 million tourists a year. So that's more than 4 times our population. Hence why, it has such a strong economy as well. I mean, strategically located in the heart of the Mediterranean, with very close ties to mainland Europe, to North Africa, and the Middle East. Sharing a little bit about the economy and Malta joining the EU. So it's been a member since 2004, then became Schengen in 2007, and then adopted the euro currency in 2008. Democratic system, very, very liberal and progressive in terms of the democratic and the business aspect, with key trade trade gateways in terms of expanding markets for the Mediterranean, Middle East, and North Africa. Over the past decade, Malta's economy consistently attracted positive reviews by international credit rating agencies, and Malta has really done well in positioning itself as a pro-business with extensive double taxation treaties, as well as very favorable tax rates for businesses as well. So over the recent years especially, Malta has seen an exponential growth of foreign companies and industries setting base in Malta, such as online gaming being actually one of the biggest hubs in the world for hosting online gaming and video gaming companies, fintechs, amongst other global players that look to set up offices here or subsidiary branches here. I mean, it's also due to its central location, so it's often chosen as a meeting place for global organizations. We've recently had all the executives for Samsung holding conferences here in Malta, and because it's a small island, well connected, it's easy to get from point A to point B, but also in terms of connection, airport is well connected to the main hubs of Europe as well. And because of the strong local demand for real estate, but also foreign, as I said, 2 million tourists, there isn't enough hotels where to accommodate such students. Therefore, the buy to let and the short letting, the likes of Airbnb and Booking.com is quite strong and fuels the demand for real estate. So it's also seen one of the largest growths in Europe over the past 20 years, with a strong increase year on year. Just a little bit about our lifestyle, and I think it's important to really share with you that Malta enjoys one of the best climates in the world. We're actually privileged and blessed with over 300 days of sunshine per year. What does that mean? It means that our winters are very, very, very short. January, February, maybe can feel temperature can go down to 4 degrees, but other than that, beautiful warm days, and gets hot 2 months in summer, but not Dubai like hot. So quite lucky on that front as well. I mean, the island has pristine seas, some of the cleanest beaches in Europe, and comes out highly in the International League of Table Water in terms of quality and cleanliness with regards to the bathing waters, which are ranked as excellent. So, citizens here and residents enjoy a safe and secure environment, with a very low crime rate and an excellent work-life harmony. As I said, Malta being a small island, but it's certainly, what it lacks in size is certainly, makes up for it in terms of the economy, the education, the healthcare, financial institutions definitely make up in terms of the global competition index. And I mean, on education, which is quite a strong pull as well. Malta is renowned for its education system. It provides multitudes of internationally recognized degrees, attracting thousands of international students to Malta, especially those who wish to complete their education in English. But with that said as well, Malta's healthcare system ranks along one of the best in the world, and it's suffice it to say that Maltese people have the longest good health lifespan in EU. So given as well the world affairs, another strong pull is knowing that at least most of the families that we're helping do score quite highly on their list of priorities, that not only access to the Schengen, not only the right to reside indefinitely in Malta, but whether they choose to make Malta their second home or not, is the opportunity to have the access to a top or a better healthcare than they currently hold. So all in all, before we jump onto the program, it's a European Union, but also Mediterranean lifestyle, good quality of life, British style of business, but less expensive. We drive on the left, like the UK, like South Africa does as well. And all in all, it's definitely a welcoming environment for the many families that we've helped that actually choose to spend more time than they initially intended to. So moving on to the program itself, the Malta Residency and Visa Program, which officially legal notice launched in 2015 with some amendments which we've participated in, our suggestions to the government that enabled it to become the popular solution, the popular proposition that it is today, hence why it is in such high demand. Let me take you through the requirements and, you know, what does it take to qualify. So it enables third country nationals, so non-EU, to take up residency in Malta, provided obviously that certain conditions are met. Mainly that the applicant, the main applicant, is at least of 18 years of age, and he or she are able to declare and provide proof that they either earn an annual income of not less than 100,000 earned arising outside of Malta, or better still, the most often route that the clients opt to take is prove that they have at least 500,000 worth of assets that they can prove. Therefore, it could be real estate, a business valuation, funds in account, or even a combination of all of this, which again, that's where we specialize in helping building the case to put forward a successful application. The last thing that's obviously required is, you know, very important, no criminal background. So it's important that the applicant does not possess, or I should say, does not come across as a potential threat to the national security or the public policy or public health of Malta. We will carry out our due diligence at no obligation, and you know, no transactions take place in terms of funds before we can carry out our due diligence. But once you clear this, that's where then we move on to the onboarding, and these are the four quite straightforward requirements to be able to satisfy it and be granted with the indefinite permit and the right to reside indefinitely and permanently in Malta. So first thing is a contribution to the government for 30,000, irrespective of the family composition, so the number of dependents. And that will not increase unless the main applicant or the spouse decide to add their parents or their grandparents. So 30,000 covers all the family, but it suffices to say that it's a program that enables also the addition of or the inclusion of parents and grandparents, but we'll come to that later. So the four main requirements to satisfy is a contribution to the government upon approval, is to satisfy an investment of 250,000. However, one of the changes applied is the financial mechanism that is accepted, which brings the investment requirement all the way down to 70,000. And it's also to be in possession of a health insurance that covers all risk within all EU for all the dependents, and holds a property. So those are the four requirements that one must satisfy towards the end of the application. So previously we've seen what is required to qualify. This is what's required to satisfy to then be granted with the residency. So four main requirements. Moving on to you know, really the unique selling points and the benefits of such a program. Starting with the fact that an application can be initiated without really needing to visit the island. And especially given the current world affairs, it is what has enabled us to continue quite actively with this program. And even since our first webinar in South Africa in July, we're helping a good number of families who have decided to start their application. So, you know, it's a program that provides an indefinite permit, so the right to reside permanently in Malta upon approval. So it's not a temporary residence whereby you need to then renew, you know, do the time and renew the permit. It's an indefinite permit. There's no permit renewals granted upon approval. And the other benefit is it requires no mandatory physical presence. Therefore, we have families that now finished the process, 6 to 9 months, and they have yet to decide if they will move to Malta or if they'll continue with their life in South Africa, in other countries, before deciding if they would move or actually remain with their current place, because there is no mandatory requirement to move or spend time in Malta to maintain the permit. So it's quite flexible and a benefit that families really appreciate. In terms of the financing side of it, it's a very competitively priced program in comparison to what is out there. And in under 190,000 all in, it covers all the family, covers all the requirements. And probably saying, how come? And there's an investment of 250,000. But I did mention, and later on in the slides we'll see as to how that is enabled to be financed to bring all in the investment of 190,000, which in reality it's around 35,000 to initiate an application, and by the end of the 9-month period, say 12 months by the end of it, it is the remainder that's required to be paid upon approval. So no language requirements, yeah, a program that provides a residency card which provides access to all Schengen countries. What's also, as I mentioned earlier, the MRVP allows for multiple generation of families. Therefore, the main applicant and his spouse can add their children, can add their parents, can add their grandparents. They can also add future kids as well, which is quite straightforward submission to do. As I mentioned earlier, Malta obviously ties in with the fact that it's a safe and stable country, economy, and yeah, provides applicants with an opportunity, should they decide to make Malta a second home, opportunity to send their kids to school here in Malta, to do business here in Malta, and yeah, benefit from a buoyant and lucrative real estate market. I mean, a very, very stable real estate market. And I think it's fair to mention, tied in with the requirement of having a residency, therefore an applicant requires to have an address here in Malta. It is not mandatory to purchase property. A rental property, as we'll see in the following slide, is acceptable. Therefore, continues to bring down the total capital outlay required to satisfy the requirements. So let me take you through the financing of the program and really explain how this program is achieved in under 190,000 by explaining the three components. So as I said earlier, the components are a government contribution of 30,000, our fees of 25,000, and the 250,000 investment is able to be financed for a one-time payment of 70,000. So all that together brings the total capital outlay to 125,000. So 70,000 and 30,000 is 100, and 25,000 is 125,000. The only thing to add on top of that upon approval is that an applicant needs to either purchase, or in many cases our client choose to rent a property at the minimum to satisfy the minimum requirement, which is 10,000 per annum, until they decide what they'd like to do. So really and truly, for 125,000, one becomes a resident of Malta, and the only thing to add on top of that by the end of the 9-12-month journey is a rental property, which you're not even obliged to pay upfront. Rent can be paid on a quarterly basis. So take that as another 2,500 per annum. So this is what really brings, what really makes the program an attractive and price competitive and accessible as well to a good number of families. Quickly to take you through the timeline and the process. So as I said, it takes give and take 6 to 9 months from the time of submission, but obviously it depends on, we will go at your pace. So it depends as to how quick you are in providing us with the information. But as a general rule, it takes a month to 2 in terms of putting together the required documentation. We will literally handhold you throughout the application. So right after the onboarding and signing of the agreements and settling the retainer, we start compiling the application, and that roughly takes 1 to 2 months. A visit to Malta is optional. Some clients opt to visit because certifications done in Malta, it's quite easier and apparently cheaper as well to do, but it really depends on your schedule. So if you're not in a position to visit, it could be done remotely. And then you would be required to visit upon the approval stage at the very end, once you're required to come for the biometrics. So that's stage 1 of the application, and that's where once the application is compiled, we move on to the submission stage and the government agency checks. That is what takes roughly 6 to 9 months process. The government may and many times would come back with some additional questions, some clarifications, but that's what we refer to as putting together a successful application and making sure it is correct and complete. So that's what we actually spend most of our time doing, and that's what we specialize at. At that stage, upon the submission, really and truly what has been paid so far, apart from our fees, the 25,000 that covers all the family, unless the main applicant or the spouse decides to add, parents or grandparents. Apart from that, the only thing that's really paid is out of the 30,000 contribution to the government, only 5,500 of that is paid, and the rest of the obligation, so the remainder of the contribution, the 70,000 one-time payment for the satisfying the investment, the health insurance, and also securing a residential address. All that comes towards the very, very end of the application once it is approved. Therefore, even from a cash flow perspective, many of our clients have found this quite interesting. That it's not, a burden from a cash flow perspective in initiating an application. At the very end, once the government has carried out their checks and issues what is known as an approval in principle, subject to the applicant fulfilling those 4 requirements. Therefore, the very first thing is settling the remainder of the contribution. So it would be 24,500, as 5,500 has already been paid. That makes it 30,000. Is providing a contract note that shows that the investment has been satisfied. It's something that we will literally help you with that by opening an account for you, remitting the 70,000, and what is called a financing company would acquire the investment on your behalf and present you with the most important thing, which is a contract note that enables you to satisfy that requirement. We will also submit at that stage the health insurance policy, and also if you opt to rent a property, which many of our clients choose to do, is to submit a rental agreement. That is fulfilling those 4 obligations, and then the government issues the final letter of approval, which in itself is an invitation to come over to Malta for the biometrics. And then after that's taken, the applicants are issued with a certificate of residency, so the permit, that's an indefinite permit, together with the residency cards, which would be available for 5 years because of the biometrics. So you have a certificate which is indefinite, giving you the right to live permanently here in Malta and accessing all the Schengen countries, but also with that comes a residency card as well. So that is, in a nutshell, the process from start to finish. It's been an absolute pleasure, and quite happy to see such a good number of participants with us. Thank you for joining us, and I now look forward to answering your questions, and also you will find my contact details. I'm available also for one-to-one private consultations if you feel that you prefer to discuss and hold a call, or if I did not have enough time to answer all these questions that I can already see coming up. So thank you for that, and looking forward to assisting you and your family in starting this exciting journey in your life. Thank you for your time. So I can see a number of questions that has already been received. So what I'll do now is I'll start going through each question one by one, without mentioning any names, of course. And bear with me as soon as I'll read out the question and answer accordingly. So first question that we have is, why is Malta a good investment for South Africans? Well, I'll say, if I haven't answered that question today, then I haven't done really a good job. But this question has been received early on in during the presentation. I'm only seeing it now, but happy to reiterate once again. I mean, I think it's good to perhaps highlight the fact that having a second residency provides peace of mind. So nowadays, if you can afford, you would be doomed not to actually have it. You know, think of it as the 21st century insurance policy, whereby this time around, this insurance policy, you'll be happy to use. Moreover, particularly on Malta, the fact that this residency happens to afford applicants with the opportunity to access at the lowest capital outlay that one finds from really all solutions in the EU, coupled with the fact that there's no minimum requirements in terms of days spent to maintain the indefinite permit. So it's really the best of both worlds, you know, total flexibility in terms of requirements and who really qualifies for it, what you have to put into this to actually attain this permit, but also what you really need to put in time-wise to maintain it as well. Because not everyone's looking to relocate. Some are thinking about it, wanting to achieve this permit today, you know, as quick as possible, but looking, you know, to use that privilege, not now, but at a later stage. So moving on to the next question here from an American participant. Can I still apply? The answer is yes, because it's open to non-EU. Will I be able to open a bank account? The answer is also yes. And lastly, can I register my immediate family members? So the good thing about the MRVP is that it allows for multiple generation of family. How? A main applicant and a spouse can not only, as I've mentioned in the webinar, as I've mentioned earlier, can not only add their dependents, therefore their kids, but they can choose to also add their parents and also their grandparents. It doesn't stop there. If an applicant, a family, have been granted residency and then later have kids, they can easily add them together with, if one of the dependents who's currently included in the application, not married of course, then later decides to get married, then it's the program allows very easily for the now married dependent to add the spouse and of course children as well. So moving on to the next question is, does residency allow me to work anywhere in the European Union? Okay, I think I need to elaborate a little bit further on this. And so with a Malta residency, you are, you know, first able to reside permanently, indefinitely in Malta. You are also able to seek employment, whereby the employer will give you, will get you the work permit upon the job offer. You are also able to visit any European Schengen countries for a maximum stay of 90 days. but you're not able to live and settle in a European country. You require a European citizenship for that, which is $1 million upwards, and a completely different program. So to work, live, and settle in any other European country, you have no residency gives you that in one country. In any country, it just gives it to you in that country. In this case, Malta gives you the opportunity to reside indefinitely in Malta, with all the opportunities to work, etc., etc. Gives you the opportunity to access, but it does not give you the opportunity. If you get a Malta residency, then you work in Germany. You would need to seek residency in Germany, which we also provide and help you with. Same thing with, let's say, if you consider Portugal. This is where you are better off getting residency in the targeted European country. Hence why in our one-to-one consultation, we take time to first establish your goals and what you're really looking for. So depending on your goals and depending on the capital that you're prepared to invest, that's where we will be able to identify the right solution to be able to attain your goal. So moving on to the next question here. So what about tax rates for expats? Okay, so the tax rates for expats, firstly, I think it's important to highlight, because I don't think I actually mentioned this during the presentation, that the program, this program, and attaining residency permit in Malta, it will not affect your tax status, irrelevant which country you come from, irrelevant of the nationality of the applicant. Thus, if you choose to continue living in your respective country, then no tax is paid in Malta. But even if you once you become a resident here in Malta, your tax rate, your tax status does not change. Then if you, however, decide to make Malta your place of residence, therefore spending most of your time here in Malta, choosing to spend over 183 days, then you will be considered what is called a tax resident. Therefore, you will end up paying tax on your income, but only if it's actually earned in Malta. Therefore, such as salary from employment in Malta. Or let's say if you choose to remit funds to Malta in the sort of dividends, not capital, then again, if you're living in Malta, then you get to pay tax on it. So in short, you're only paying tax if you are earning an income in Malta, just like any other local here in Malta. And therefore, the rates would also be on the same brackets between 15 to 35, depending on the income. Maybe I'll take the opportunity as well to kind of highlight on what the corporate tax is, which is also 35%. However, that is for domiciled companies. Therefore, the UBO being a Maltese domiciled person. You will not become a Maltese domiciled person, even if you become a resident, and you get to benefit corporately for what is called the 673 fund. Therefore, and effectively, your corporate tax rate becomes 5%. Moving on to the next question, and this is, what do I get with 2.5 million rand? If my calculation serves me right, 2.5 is roughly 128,000 euros. So just actually enough to cover the obligations by the end of year one. So usually the 12-month period it takes to cover the 125,000 I explained earlier. So it definitely enables you to kick off your application, which comes at around 35,000 because you're only paying 5,500 from the government's obligation and cover our fees to get you to the finish line. Then upon approval, you need to satisfy the requirement, which is the settlement of the government contribution, the 70,000, which is a one-time payment to the financing company that bridges the difference, and that's not returned at the end, and the health insurance. I add that, and I won't put on top the 50,000, which is 10,000 per year for property, because you're not going to pay that a year in advance, and neither are you going to pay it 5 years in advance. So earlier, when I mentioned in the presentation 190, I wanted to give you a total amount over the 5 years, which includes also the rental property. But it's 125 that you'll be covered in this case. I hope I answered that question. So moving on to the next question. Let's see, is there? 1 second. Sorry. Every time I get a question, it just moves on for me. So, is there a requirement of net worth to make an application? So I guess to qualify. Yeah, I believe I've answered this in the early slides, whereby an applicant needs to demonstrate and prove that they either have 500,000 euros in assets, which can be made up of a number of assets I've mentioned before: real estate, funds and account, investment, savings, business valuation. So that's what would be a requirement, or that you can demonstrate that an applicant earns over 100,000 in salary, which is earned outside of Malta. I mean, it suffices to say that 95% of applicants opt for proving that they have in assets 500,000, because it also helps when they actually move to Malta, because they will maintain that asset, whereas the income that they're earning might not be maintained if they decide to move from their existing position in the country they're currently living in. So I've answered that. So moving on to the next question. Okay. Is one's details published? Okay, someone's asking if the details, which I'm guessing the personal details of an individual, are published when they are when they make an application. No, they're not. I guess this is coming because for the citizenship program they are, but it's not the case for the residency. So the name of the residents and the permit holders are not published. Next question. Okay, so this question is, how does this program, therefore the Malta program, compare to the Golden Visa program? So I take it, by Golden Visa program, the participant here may be referring to Portugal scheme, because that really seems to be the program that's referred to as the Golden Visa program. We offer both programs, so I won't be saying that's one is better than the others. I would be referring to what I said earlier, that during a one-to-one private consultation, we can, find out and establish, which is the right solution. So it really depends on the applicant's goals. But just to give you a quick comparison, you have Portugal, that you need a minimum capital outlay of around 340,000 at least, compared to what the Malta outlay is, which is 125,000 plus the rental property, 10,000 per year, that needs to be held for 5 years. So that's 175 plus the insurance and the other add-ons, which comes to tops 190. So for the ones that are prioritizing the capital outlay that they need to put forward, that's one comparison that we will perhaps make. The Portugal program requires that the permit is renewed 2 to 3 times during until it can get to the permanent status, versus no renewals required by the Malta permit because it's an indefinite one. So again, for those that want the privilege of being able to reside permanently without any renewals needed to be made, any days needed to be spent, Portugal, you've got minimum days spent to be able to renew that permit. Malta does not. So that's another comparison that one would make. The investment, I'd say, requirement are different. So Portugal is a real estate mandatory. One has to purchase property, versus the investment in Malta does not require property to be purchased. Rental is accepted. And the heavy investment is the government bond of 250,000, which, as I explained earlier, the government later on have allowed the financial mechanism, which most of our clients opt for, because they've got better things to do with the difference from 70 to 250. With the 180,000, they've got better things to do than putting 250 in government bonds and having, earning them next to nothing. But then obviously, if one is keen on making, at least the 340,000 investment in Portugal, which mostly is put on real estate, some of which come with a buyback guarantee, that's another comparison that we would make. So I think all in all, it's for really applicants to determine as to which are the ones that make more sense for them. I mean, Portugal has a clearer pathway to citizenship. Malta requires much longer to attain citizenship once they decide to fully relocate and reside here. So I trust this gives you a good comparison, but obviously I invite participants to drop me a one-liner and we can have a one-to-one consultation if they're unsure as to which route they should embark on. As I said earlier, we offer the Portuguese solution, we offer the Germany solution, we do most of the European Union, but I had to highlight Malta as one that's really gaining popularity, especially with South Africans, because of its flexibility. I'm going to quickly go through the following questions, maybe try to be a bit more concise as well. Any additional cost? There's no really additional cost to what I said. Obviously, I could not quantify if one would require translations to the documentations held, like certificates and certifications as well, but quite minimal. So, but no any additional fees included. So the 190 covers it all over the 5-year period. Any limitations for family members? No. As I said earlier, there's no restrictions on the number of dependents, no restrictions also in terms of adding parents and grandparents. And it's good also to take the opportunity to mention that there's no age restriction as well. Therefore, the dependent kids can be over 18, over 25, over 28. We've had cases, as long as they're not married and they're not economically active. So that the trickier part is, the moment they've hit 30, we need to really demonstrate as to why they're not economically active at the time of application submission. Okay, how many applications have been made for South Africans? Oh God. Well, I don't have that number at the top of my head, but certainly more than we initially anticipated. Hence why we're actually dedicating more time and resources specifically for South African families. So, I mean, we have committed ourselves to holding frequent webinars. We're also doing one-to-one consultations. I've had the first half of the day today holding one-to-one consultations, most of my day yesterday as well, because it's really picking up in South Africa, and we're finding, and I'm quite humbled actually, we're finding families that are actually quickly establishing trust now really getting used to holding calls, whether it's Zoom or web calls, and they're actually introducing us to other families once they actually have just started their application. So referring referring us clients with and our services and the solutions we offer. So yes, I mean, Malta is increasingly becoming the destination of choice for South Africans and many other nationals as well. As I said, due to its low capital outlay and the total flexibility in terms of the requirements. Moving on, is education free? So look, as a resident, kids have the option of attending either state school or a private school. And it's not free. However, suffice it to say that the state school, which is accessible for residents, would come at a nominal fee, which, comparing it to what is paid elsewhere, is negligible. But also, I think it's fair to mention that there's ample private schools as well to choose from. And again, the fees we've actually shared with clients, they come back to us and say they're super competitive and actually cheap compared to what they're used to paying. I'm gonna move to the next question, which is, sorry, every time the next question comes up. So okay, I've answered this question. I have. Child goes through. Okay, what happens if a dependent gets married? I've answered that question, so they can add their spouses. What happens when a dependent gets married or financially dependent? So when they get married, I've answered that question. When they become financially dependent, it's at the time of submission of application that they cannot be economically active. But there onwards, they can be, so no issues there. Do I get a return on the 125,000? No, there's no return on the 125,000. Will the Zoom meeting be recorded so it can be shared with the rest of my family and friends? Yes, definitely. We have been recording this. And what we'll do now is we'll follow up with all the participants and people that are registered, and we'll give you the opportunity to see this recording and then follow up with a one-to-one consultation, or if you prefer, emails to answer all your questions, had I not covered them today. We have two children, one 21 and one's 19 years of age. Up to what age will they be able to qualify as part of the program? So happy to say good news is that there's no age restriction. So as long as they're not married and they're not economically active, you're saying here that they're students still attending school. Therefore, I confirm that they can be included in the application at no additional cost whatsoever, not on our part and not on the government side as well. How many years do you need to hold the P? Okay, how many years do you need to hold the residency before you are able to apply for citizenship? An interesting question. We get asked this ever so often. So the moment that an applicant gets the permit, the indefinite permit in Malta, before they need to think of citizenship, the first decision they need to make is they need to make Malta their home. So they need to be living here, spending most of their time here. They need to be paying taxes here in Malta, the kids going to school here in Malta, as part of building the genuine links required to apply for citizenship. If they have resided 4 consecutive years here in Malta out of the first 6, they technically speaking qualify to apply. However, the reality is that the minister, which is completely at his discretion to apply, we know for a fact that they do not consider applications before they've hit at least the 12-year mark. And what I do say, when I'm always asked this question, is you cannot be applying for this program if your intention is to get citizenship right away. There are other solutions which obviously come at a much higher capital outlay. However, if someone is prepared to do the time, and the indefinite residency, which grants you the right to live permanently here in Malta, is what you're looking for, then the citizenship is a bonus, but you need to put in the time for it. You need to put in the time for it. It's not an easy milestone to attain within a couple of years. So, someone's asking me, I've joined late. Do you have an office in Cape Town to assist? So no, we do not currently have an office in Cape Town. To be honest, I mean, globally, our strategy is not to increase the number of offices. I think this pandemic and the current world affairs actually has taught us a lesson that we are able to achieve a lot more remotely, including our workforce mostly working remotely nowadays. That said, we are more than happy to assist you, and you know, should you want to take this further, I suggest you drop me a one-line email, and we can definitely assist you from there. You know, the other thing as well worth mentioning, which I believe I did mention earlier, is the opportunity here with the Malta residency especially is that it does not require you to travel to Malta to initiate an application. So all of it can be done remotely, and we'll actually ask you, you'll be invited by the government to travel to Malta towards the end of the application once you are required to come for the biometrics. I do have still a good number of questions, so I'm going to quickly rush through them, and apologies if I won't manage to answer all of them. So my team here will tell me roughly as to how long we have left. We do have a couple of minutes left. So is there an interview required? No, there's no interview required, and there's no language requirements as well. Travel restrictions, as I've mentioned earlier, it does not affect, because you can initiate an application, we can submit on your behalf, we take actually the interview with the government on your behalf, presenting the case. It's what we do. It's called a complete and correct application submission, and demonstrating your case, and then you'll be invited to come over once the process is complete. Someone saying, I have a business, it's an ice cream shop, can we expand such a business in Malta? Absolutely. The residency here in Malta will not prohibit, you know, business activity in Malta. Actually, it's encouraged. I am not clear how the rent 70,000 financing the 250. So first and foremost, it's euros to be precise, and not rent. So all the figures that I've quoted, so the 125,000 is in euros and not in rent. So if you want to exchange it in rent, you're looking at around 2.5 million, unless I am mistaken. That comes to around 126,000 euros. Moving on. So how do I convert residency into citizenship? I've explained earlier what you'd need to put into to get that. Another question here, if my child gets residency and they get married, will their spouse get residency? The answer is yes. They would need to obviously submit what is called an additional request, but with something that we will help you with, and also quite straightforward. Does the residency in Malta subsidize EU university fees like EU residents? I'd like to use this. Sorry, I've lost the question. In brief, as I said earlier, the residency grants you the opportunity. However, education is not for free. It's heavily, I should say, heavily subsidized on the state side of schooling, but education is not for free. But we can even share with you to give you an idea of what the fees are like. So someone's asking here, so this is not an investment if you are purchasing your residency. Well, basically, to clarify, there are various ways how to attain residency. This is by investment because you're actually, in exchange for the investment, for the capital outlay that one is putting into, in return, you're attaining residency. So this is not where you're putting in the time, you're getting a visa, and it quickly, over the time, it graduates to a temporary residency and then to a permanent residency. No, you're submitting an application, and the moment you're approved, you attain an indefinite permit, which grants you the right to reside permanently here in Malta and also access the European Schengen country. Last question, is there an age limit to finding employment in Malta, and what employment opportunities are available in Malta? I've had a similar discussion today with one of my calls, and in terms of opportunities here in Malta, I have to say we have the lowest unemployment rate compared to all European countries, an economy that's registering surplus year after year, pre-COVID, and I'm very bullish about the future of Malta and the opportunities that comes with it, especially because of the number of industries that have actually been developed here in Malta. So it definitely provides you the opportunity. And in terms of age limit, actually the age that people retire here in Malta is anywhere between 63 to 65, with the option to get extension if obviously your employer accepts it. I believe I have now covered all the questions. So I'm gonna again take the opportunity to thank you for participating. I hope I was able to answer your questions, but I do invite you to drop me a line and an email, and we can set up a one-to-one consultation where we spend a bit more time discussing your main goals, what you're looking to achieve, and how we can make that happen for you. Thank you once again, and you have a lovely evening. Thank you so much.